Hello, I'm Mickey Bavington, and I'm here to introduce the next video, In the Flesh. And the wrinkles. I was absolutely terrified of being live on YouTube, but according to YouTube and their algorithms, the more you appear live, the more views you get. So, I just wondered how many people actually want to look at me. But, especially when people go, "Oh, you've got a lovely voice." And here I am, in my glory. The video, sorry. We're going to go back to the 1970s, my favourite era, our favourite era, and we're going to talk about the swindles and the fiddles of the 70s, what they did to us and what we did to them. And there's going to be a big story at the end, which is well worth listening to. So, if my mush hasn't put you off, we will continue as normal. So, let's get on with it.
The swindling 70s. Yes, you've heard it. Well, not especially as scams. But scams have been around for a long time, as long as people have walked the earth. But let's look at the crooks and the desperate things they got up to in that decade. This includes the biggest spot the ball scam a newspaper has ever been subjected to. You've got to hear this later on. You think of scamming or fooling people into parting with their money is mostly thanks to the internet. Yes, technology scams have increased and become very sophisticated. But my favourite era of the 1970s had tricks of getting money for nothing, all of its own. More than scamming, technology was fiddled and companies had themselves tricked up their sleeves to relieve people of their well-earned cash. So, my social shifty history is all about the cons of the 1970s. And please note, this is not a video about how to fiddle or swindle. These tricks would never work today. Your kids and stingy friends were not exactly scamming, but they found a way to get you to answer the phone and speak to them for free. Playing on your generosity, they would do a transfer charge call, which we may know better as reverse the charges. The call would cost the subscriber much more than a typical call. In the 70s, however, you could hear the operator and the person you wanted to contact asking them to accept the charges. And if you were quick enough, you could get your message before the reverse call was denied. Many kids did this for a free call. Still with telephones, the old payphones. If you called the operator to say that your money hadn't connected you, thus you lost your money, they would put you through for a short time for free, if they believed you. All you had to do was sound convincing. Another trick was when tone dialing began, multi-frequency dialing, in the late 1970s. In some cases, if you recorded the phone number tones on a little cassette player, you could play them down the line and you could get your calls for free, both national and international. There was also a system called phreaking. This involved a blue box that played tones down the line of numbers that would connect you by bypassing the billing system. All this kind of rigging didn't last long. Chain letters. Companies were sending you letters giving you the idea that you won a fantastic prize. No need to spend any money. All you had to do was fill in the forms and wait for your prize that never arrived. I can remember this particular scam because I was a victim of it, I've got to be honest. Well, what you had to do is you had to try out one of their products with no pressure to buy, and you could return it without obligation. If you did that, you were definitely in for a prize, from a free stay holiday to thousands of pounds or even a brand new car. Now the problem was they never collected the product until after the approval date had expired, so you'd ended up paying for the item, or they kept your deposit, which, let's face it, was less or the same value of the item anyway. So you ended up with that free stay holiday, that so-called prize. No flights, no spending money, just a hotel room the other side of the world in the middle of winter for 3 days. Free stay holidays were just a way that they paid for your hotel room and you had to cough up all the rest. Normally places that no one wanted to go to, where the flights were unaffordable or unreliable. Yes, I did fall for that, and I didn't go on the holiday neither. Work from home. These schemes particularly sold well because neighbours and friends were involved. So what you do, You'd get makeup or perfume and you'd sell them to other people. All you had to do was wait for your delivery of stock that you had to pay for in advance from your agent. The scheme was to sell and make your customers that bought the items from you sell as themselves. That way, you'd earn commission from your own sales and you'd earn commission from their sales as well as their agent. But if you were at the top of this pyramid, it meant that everyone in your area had already signed up or purchased the products from previous agents. So you bought all these samples and products, and because the market had been flooded, you got stuck with your perfume or whatever you bought to sell. The only winners were the people at the bottom of the pyramid, and those selling the stock that they pushed on you that you got stuck with. I know that sounds a bit complicated, but I hope I've explained that enough. The colour TV scam. TV rental companies would come to repair your old black and white TV back in the 70s. Even if your set could be repaired in your home, the agent would say your TV has got to go back to the shop. Just by chance, they had a replacement set in the van, but it was colour, so don't worry, it won't cost you any more whilst your TV is being fixed. That TV would take just enough time to mend so you and your family would get used to this amazing colour set, and you'd want to keep it, and many did, thus being charged the higher rent afterwards. Do you remember the guy that appeared at the market? You only saw him once. With his mic he'd show you all these gadgets and keep adding more and more whilst not increasing the price. Wow, all these things for a few quid. You get home, you'd either open up weighted boxes with no product, or the items were not working. No point in going back to rant at him, he was long gone. Cheques were an excellent way of getting money out of the bank if you didn't care about your credit record. I'd say more this was about money in advance than people doing a scam. People did it when they were a bit short of money. Let me explain. A cheque would take 3 days to officially clear, so many cheques would clear technically before they were actually rubber stamped. The ATM would allow you to withdraw the money overnight, so you could draw the cleared funds. But the cheque you wrote from your other account would bounce later, leaving that account overdrawn. But you got the cash in your hand, so you wouldn't worry about the overdrawn account, and you'd basically work that out at another time. So in other words, it was a way of lending without being authorised. Cash machines in the 70s were always a day behind your inside banking transactions, and the other way around. Rubber cheques were ubiquitous for both scammers and for those who were strapped for cash. Sometimes one could write a cheque to, let's say, a supermarket 3 days before payday, when your balance was basically at zero. The cheque would clear through the system fine, as your wages would be in your bank, or you would pay money in from your pay packet to cover that cheque just in time. Great legal trick that would keep you going until payday. Again, you were lending money without authorisation. There were reports of bank customers getting massive overdrafts by telling their bank manager they had won the pools, and they were depositing their forthcoming winnings into their accounts, and managers believed them and offered them more credit and even champagne congratulations. Even friends fell for those stories too, by lending money. Letters from unknown relatives from a far land arriving at people's door were common in the 1970s. The letters would arrive in stages and kept you intrigued with what amounts were left to you in certain wills. You would be the only distant relative, but to get the money, there will be a finder's and administration fee to pay before you got your inheritance released. I can't, and I hope to think that no one ever fell for this. Adult drink prices in clubs, them sort of clubs. A customer would enter a strip bar and was expecting, let's say, some sightseeing for little or no charge, only to find that their watered-down drink was at an extortionate price, with no show for their pleasure. When the customer complained, they were rejected from the place or persuaded to pay. The service, sometimes illicit, gave them no hope of legal action, especially if they wanted to keep themselves anonymous. The pink pound. Ever since gay people started to frequent bars or shops selling items of interest, and particularly during this decade, the prices were high up. Many proprietors knew they had few places to go, such as clubs, bars and shops, and the idea that was gay men with no children or families to support will be more affluent and have spare cash and will be less likely to complain. Old vending machines, such as the rotary food or snack for drinks. The old mechanism would need a physical action after putting your coins in to get your selected products. So basically you put your coin in, you'd open the drawer and take out your sandwich. But people were putting their money in and holding their hand on the reject button and the door at the same time, and they were pushing them down and across at exactly the same time. What would happen is you'd get your sandwich and half of your change would be back dropped into the tray. This was a secret that workers never shared with their managers. The weighted manual scales trick. Some shopkeepers would give their customers less than what they'd paid for by attaching a small magnet secretly on the side of the scales, then weighing up the items such as loose veg, fruit, or even butter or meat. The balance scales were metal, so therefore the magnet would stick and therefore giving a false reading. Once the customer had been served, the magnet would be taken off and the scales would balance again. However, by the 1970s, many customers knew about this behaviour and would avoid the shops who were trying this con.
Right, here comes the big one. Well, we all remember those spot the ball competitions, very popular in the 1970s. And don't worry, they weren't a scam, but they were very hard to beat. Now, this is an interesting story. I managed to find this in my research, and it all began in 1973. A woman was working for the Scottish Daily Express in a typical low-paid job, but she was promoted to competitions clerk, and we'll call her Kay. Kay was in her late 20s at the time. She was living in a suburb of Glasgow, and it wasn't the best. It was all concrete buildings in the sky, you know, the ones the architects thought that were going to be futuristic, but they obviously weren't. So in those circumstances, she was discontented with her life and all of her daily struggles, just living in this dystopian surrounding, missing out on the finer things in life. She worked with a boss, and he was in very much the same position, and they were chairing and championing the spot the ball competition in the paper. Now, the spot the ball was just a simple photograph of a typical football match, and what you had to do is they'd take the ball out and you had to guess where the ball is with a little cross. However, it wasn't easy. You could follow where the crowd was looking, or you could see where the footballers were looking, or has anybody just kicked a ball or something, and you'd win. But it really wasn't very easy. And because it wasn't very easy, there was a massive prize of £1,500. Now, in 1973, that was a lot of money. The idea of fiddling the competition will be revealed in a moment, but it was only going to be a one-off scam. This was because there was an announcement of redundancies, so they thought they were going to lose their jobs. However, after deliberation in 1974, it turned out they were going to keep their jobs after all. So they were going to carry on with this mundane job of not really earning much money for those luxuries that they desired. So this was how it all began. The plan was a piece of cake, so they thought. It would involve 4 members of staff, which they called a syndicate, and all they had to do was pick out a bogus winner. They'd share the prize of £1,500, which was a lot of money to share, and the bogus winner would get £200. So the first person they picked was Kay's mother, and it all went swimmingly well. In fact, it went that well that they continued to do this more than 60 times. What could ever go wrong? New houses, new cars, holidays, life of Riley, for all of those in the syndicate, and for those bogus winners, their £200. Don't know how fair you thought it was, giving them only 200 quid, but anyway, it was a scam. They were all wrong, they were all naughty. Right. Well, it was all about to come to a dramatic end when they chose a 19-year-old lad. He was number 67. And, just like with the rest, he kept his £200 reward and was supposed to give the money back to the syndicate. He'd spent his £200, that was fine, but then no one came knocking the door for the rest of the money. So he spent it, spent the whole lot. However, weeks later, people did come round, heavies, and they threatened to throw him in the canal with a concrete jacket. So what did he do? He blew the whistle on the whole scam. So this meant the police had arrested the syndicate, prison sentences, heavy fines, and of course they lost the job. Just wanted to share that story with you. Thanks.
Well, I wondered if you were interested in all that, because I certainly was. Well, just wanted to say thank you very much again for watching this video. And if you've got any ideas of what you want me to speak about or anything you want me to delve into, please tell me in the comments. I'm always happy to have a look. Well, again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon. Just leaves me to say bye for now.